In 1961, Soviet soldiers reported something that would change everything. For 60 years, the CIA classified the files. But in 2025, they were finally released. What happened that night in the Soviet Union has never been fully explained, and the government wanted to keep it that way. Today, we're uncovering the truth behind one of the most shocking encounters in Cold War history. Part 1. The night everything changed. On a remote military base in the Ural Mountains, Soviet soldiers were conducting a routine night patrol. It was late October 1961, during the height of Cold War tensions. The base was top secret, few people even knew it existed. But that night, witnesses would see something that defied explanation. According to declassified reports, around 11 p.m., multiple soldiers reported seeing strange lights in the sky. Not aircraft. Not weather balloons. Something moving in ways that seemed impossible for any known technology. The lights were described as brilliant white and blue, hovering silently above the military installation before suddenly accelerating at speeds that would be impossible for conventional aircraft. The Soviet commander on duty immediately ordered a full alert. The base went into lockdown. Soldiers took defensive positions, unsure what they were facing. Was it an American attack? Was it a new weapon? Nobody knew. And that fear, that uncertainty, would drive what happened next. Part 2. The encounter intensifies. What started as a sighting quickly escalated into something far more serious. The objects began descending toward the base. Soldiers reported they could feel a strange electromagnetic interference, radios went static, instruments malfunctioned. Some witnesses described feeling paralyzed, unable to move, as if an invisible force held them in place. One declassified account from a Soviet officer reads: the craft descended silently. No sound. No propulsion we could identify. When it came within several hundred meters, all communication ceased. Instruments failed. Men reported tingling sensations, some experienced moments of lost consciousness. The base commander made a critical decision. He authorized soldiers to engage. Gunfire erupted across the compound. Dozens of rounds fired at the objects. But according to reports, the bullets had no effect. The objects seemed to absorb or deflect the fire. For several minutes, Soviet soldiers were shooting at something they couldn't hit, something they couldn't understand. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the encounter ended. The objects rose rapidly into the atmosphere and disappeared. Within minutes, all instruments returned to normal. Communications came back online. But the soldiers who witnessed it were traumatized. Some described feeling drained, exhausted, as if something had been taken from them. Part 3. The cover-up begins. The Soviet government's response was immediate and total. Within hours, the entire base was sealed off. Nobody was allowed to leave. All witnesses were interrogated separately. Their testimonies were recorded, filed away, and locked in secret archives. Officers were threatened with treason charges if they spoke publicly. Soldiers were transferred to other bases, scattered across the USSR, ensuring they could never compare notes or corroborate their stories. For decades, the incident was completely buried. It didn't appear in any official Soviet records. No mention in the media. No acknowledgement that anything had happened. If you weren't there, you would never know. But Western intelligence agencies, the CIA, the NSA, they were listening. They had monitoring stations around the Soviet Union's borders. They intercepted radio communications. They knew something had happened. The CIA classified what they knew. The files were marked eyes only and locked away in vaults. For 60 years, the American government kept the secret. But then, in 2025, under pressure from Freedom of Information requests and declassification reviews, some of these files were released. And what they revealed shocked researchers and UFO investigators worldwide. Part 4. What the declassified files revealed. The released CIA documents contain detailed translations of Soviet communications intercepted that night. They included statements from witnesses, military officials, and even Soviet scientists who were brought in to investigate. What emerged was a picture far more extraordinary than anyone had anticipated. The Soviet military had calculated the object's speed. Approximately 11,000 miles per hour, with the ability to stop instantly and change direction at right angles. According to physics of the time, this was considered impossible for any object carrying mass. No human technology could perform such maneuvers. One declassified memo from a CIA analyst stated. The object exhibited flight characteristics inconsistent with any known Soviet, American, or Allied technology. The acceleration, the instantaneous changes in direction, the apparent immunity to conventional weapons, all suggest either a fundamental misunderstanding of physics as we know it, or contact with technology of non-terrestrial origin. The files also revealed something even more disturbing. The Soviet Union had captured physical evidence. Small metallic fragments, allegedly recovered from the site, were analyzed by Soviet scientists. The composition of these fragments was described in classified reports as anomalous, containing metal alloys that did not match any known terrestrial source. But here's where the story gets darker. In the months following the incident, several of the scientists who examined the fragments died under mysterious circumstances. Car accidents, sudden illnesses, suicides. The CIA noted these deaths as potentially suspicious in their files, suggesting they may not have been coincidental. Part 5. Why this matters now. For 60 years, governments on both sides of the Cold War kept this incident secret. Why? Because it challenged everything they wanted the public to believe about reality. If you admit that something like this exists, something that defies our understanding of physics and technology, it raises questions that governments aren't ready to answer. The Soviet Union eventually fell, and many of its secrets were revealed. But this incident remained classified, even as the USSR dissolved. It wasn't American national security they were protecting anymore, it was something else. Something that both superpowers seem to agree should remain hidden. The release of these files in 2025 has reignited debate among researchers, scientists, and investigators. Some dismiss it as Cold War propaganda or misidentified natural phenomena. Others believe it represents genuine evidence of non-terrestrial contact. What's certain is that something happened that night, something significant enough that two world superpowers agreed to keep it secret for over half a century. The soldiers who witnessed it carried the experience with them for the rest of their lives. Some became believers in extraterrestrial contact. Others developed psychological issues, struggling to reconcile what they saw with what official channels told them they had seen. A few broke their silence in later years, sharing their testimonies with researchers before they passed away. Part 6. Unanswered questions. Even with the declassified files, we still don't have answers to the most important questions. What were those objects? Where did they come from? Why did they target a Soviet military base? What happened to the physical evidence and the scientists who studied it? The CIA files suggest that the American government was just as mystified as the Soviets. They had no explanation. They still don't. The incident remains one of the most credible UFO encounters involving military personnel and government documentation, yet it remains largely unknown to the general public. Recent research has uncovered more declassified documents from other countries, France, Britain, Canada, all reporting similar incidents during the same period. The pattern suggests this wasn't an isolated event but part of a larger phenomenon that governments worldwide were monitoring and covering up. Some researchers now believe that the reason both the Soviet Union and the United States kept this secret wasn't out of fear, it was out of embarrassment. If you're a superpower claiming to control your airspace and your weapons, admitting that something flew over your most secret military base and you couldn't stop it is a massive blow to credibility. Better to deny it ever happened. Conclusion. The 2025 declassification has opened a door that governments tried to keep closed for 60 years. The Soviet UFO incident reminds us that history is often stranger than we're told, and that the truth is sometimes hidden not because it's dangerous, but because those in power find it inconvenient. If you want to learn more about declassified UFO encounters, government cover-ups, and the truth behind Cold War mysteries, subscribe to the channel. Like this video if it made you think differently about what's really out there. And let me know in the comments. Do you think the Soviet incident was extraterrestrial contact, or is there a more rational explanation? The files are public now. The evidence is available. What do you believe?